Welcome to the Thriving Leaders podcast, where we dive into real conversations that help leaders grow, teams flourish, and organisations thrive. I'm your host, Claire Gray, Leadership and Team Facilitator at Thriving Culture. I'm also the author of Thriving Leaders, Learn the Skills to Lead Confidently. This podcast is filled with practical tools, tips, actions, and insights that you can immediately apply so you can lead confidently now. In Season 2 of the Thriving Leaders podcast, I'm interviewing thought leaders from around the world to pick their brains on what it takes to build a thriving team. This is helping me write my second book, Thriving Teams, which will be out later in the year in 2025. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Thriving Leaders podcast. Today we're going to explore what happens when you reimagine the legal profession. Today's guests are part of a law firm that's not only shaking up how legal work gets done, but also how people within the legal industry lead, collaborate, and work. Hive Legal has become widely recognised as one of Australia's most progressive legal practices, with a model built on flexible work, values-based pricing, and design thinking. Hive is helping to lead the transformation of legal services, whilst also earning lots of industry acclaim along the way. They've been named Commercial Team of the Year in 2022 and 2024 at the Australian Law Awards, as well as known as an Employer of Choice, and have also won Wellbeing Awards. And their leadership bench strength also has had a lot of accolades too. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Joanna Green, Principal at Hive Legal, and also Melissa Lyon, Executive Director and Experienced Designer. Jo brings a wealth of expertise in highly regulated sectors like health and government. She's known not just for her legal brilliance, but for her transparent, collaborative way she leads with a commitment to impact both for her clients and her team. Jo was named Government Partner of the Year in 2024 and is recognised on the Elite Women list by the Australasian Lawyer. Mel has also made the Elite Women's list, and her journey is equally compelling. A legal design thinker and innovator, Mel has helped pioneer Hive's distinctive approach to legal service delivery and their purpose-driven approach. She's been recognised as an Innovator of the Year, a Distinguished Fellow, and an unwavering advocate for the legal profession. Welcome to the podcast, Jo and Mel.
Thanks, Claire. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. It's great to be here.
So I'm super excited to share with our listeners a bit about the Hive story. So can you tell us a bit about Hive Legal and a bit about the business model, Mel?
Sure, thanks, Claire. I always feel like this is a once upon a time story when I start to tell it, but I love telling it. You touched on it in the intro when you said that Hive Legal had the chance to reimagine what a law firm could look like. And so when the founders were going through that process, it was with the freedom of being able to create with basically a clean slate and to do away with all of the ideas and traditional ideas of what a law firm should look like. And I think we're grateful every day that the founders had the opportunity to do that. And Jo and I were around pretty well from the start of Hive, and to see that journey has been really inspiring and fulfilling to be part of. I think because we could start that way and start from scratch, it was a way of then bringing in that idea of a purpose-driven model as well, and really looking at what the firm was going to look like and the way it was going to work. And that purpose part of it really started with a purpose of improving the experience, not just for clients, obviously clients really important as well, but for our team as well. So improving the experience for our team and our clients was where we started. We'll talk a bit later on. We have actually recently revised our purpose as well. We can talk about that later on. But when you start to think about what an experience is for a client or a team, then you can really start to put together the pieces that can make a better law firm in our view. And so some of the essential elements of Hive, which we think work and work well together, are really quite truly flexible work practices. So right from 2014, we have been working in a hybrid way. And it's not just about being flexible or working remotely, it's actually about giving people choice about how they work as well, so they can integrate their life with the way that they work. Also, non-traditionally, we don't use the billable hour at Hive in terms of timesheets, and so that really has underpinned, I think, the way that we work together too. It actually means that it motivates people to work more collaboratively, because it's not just about them and what inputs they have to the time that they spend to do things. So it really does help to create that collaborative environment. And also, really, I think encouraging people's strengths through the programs that we've put together, like Thrive at Hive, which is our career building program. So, at one stage, or not recently, in the last few years, we actually redesigned performance reviews. So, rather than talking about performance reviews, we really looked at what Hive was, what we stood for, and how we could help people build their fulfilling careers at Hive. And so what that meant was that we could actually look at people's strengths, what their contributions are as well, and help to build teams where those strengths are really being brought out and encouraged in people as well. So there are a few different elements to the business model. That's some of them. I think it's really that focus on purpose and people's experiences of working with or for Hive that have really shaped what the firm is like today.
I definitely want to deep dive on purpose. So purpose comes through in terms of the work you do with clients, but also the flexibility and choices that you give people, but then also into people's individual strengths and values and the things that they value too. So I do want to unpack that further. Joe, I'm keen to hear from you, because the other thing that's a bit different to a lot of other legal firms is the leadership structure. So why is that so different at Hive?
Yeah, building on what Mel said before, of the firm was created at a time where a new model was enabled, so we can be a proprietary limited company like many other private companies. So we're an incorporated legal practice. We have some elements that are still built around the traditional or inspired by the traditional partnership model, but we're essentially all directors and shareholders of a business as well. So we're all business minded. There is not a CEO or there's not a managing principal that has to make the decisions and is responsible to different shareholders. We're all employees and directors and shareholders, so we all have different hats to wear, and we're managers. And initially, there was a thought that a managing director would be really important, but we've really moved away from that in the current phase of the business. So we really do have a devolved management model, and it builds on everyone's strengths, and everyone's responsible for particular key areas for the business in addition to their own practices, and really with a lot of support from a key operations manager and the ops team as well, and our external advisors, which we're very grateful for, to make sure everything is above board. But we really work then at a very flat kind of level. We don't work in a hierarchy. We work really on a strong relationship basis, and we make decisions very collaboratively across the board on everything to do with the business, basically.
So, like, thinking about the Hive's model, obviously you don't have a managing partner or a managing director. You've ditched billable hours. So, what have you kept from the traditional legal model, and what have you ditched?
Well, I would say, like, I think going back quite a long way, that I believe and I understand. I mean, well, I wasn't around at that time, prior to Hive, etc. But really, what many firms do now is eat what you kill. That you really just are individually rewarded, and that so everyone's really focused on their own individual billable targets and billable response. They ignore their non-billable contributions. No one wants to do those. They're not valued the same, and so therefore you don't collaborate with people as well too. If you can't put your time on someone else's matter, you're not interested in what's in it for me. I believe many moons ago, the more normal model was that if the firm does well, then we all do well and we all take a slice of that pie. And once you're a partner, there was even sharing. So our model is actually more inspired by that. We trust that everyone is working really hard and pulling towards this purpose, this common purpose that we're aligned on, that everyone is very self-motivated and driven to do that and doing their best. And their best might be different from year to year. It might be different from month to month. It might be different in a billable sense versus an operational sense, but that we essentially just all share equally. So that we all want to grow the pie. So that, and for everyone, not just for ourselves.
Excellent. So, what would you say, and this is for either of you, what would you say is Hive Legal's, like, the leadership team's secret sauce?
We've actually, I love this question because we do actually talk about our secret sauce, don't we, Joe? We've mentioned it before. And it is sometimes hard to articulate what it is. And we had the opportunity with the help of a consultant a few years ago to actually sit down and reflect on why we had been successful in the ways that we had. And it was a really nice time actually to reflect on it and to actually think about what that secret sauce was. And look, in the end, and this might sound like it's high level, but it makes a lot of sense to us, is we came to the realization that it's not what we do, but it's why we do it, which is the purpose side of it, but it's also the way that we do it. And that way, I think, that we do it in terms of how we work with our team, how we deliver our services to our clients, has really been informed by everything that's come before. So things like how we want to work together, talking to our clients in terms of using empathy, I suppose, and really listening and understanding what our clients' needs, has meant that we've created an environment where we can do things a bit differently. For example, on the client side of things, we've developed Hive GC Plus, which is a different way of delivering services to our clients. So rather than our clients asking us for assistance and one person might deliver that assistance, we work seamlessly with them to create a team that works with them as well on a retainer basis so that we can continue with that work and also build the relationships with the clients as well. So I think, yeah, it comes back to the way that we do it and all of those things that we've talked about actually coming together a lot of the time to do it. And being aware of those differences and really focusing on the practical side of it, I think has helped us. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think even in considering your model, Claire, too, it really speaks to me personally as well. And I think to us that it's something that's almost as basic and obvious as we actually really like each other. We have really good relationships at the leadership level. We've worked, I think most of us, if not all, have worked with each other for at least 10 years, some of us closer to 20 years. And we have a lot of mutual respect. We have a lot of awareness of what each other's strengths are, and we allow people to play to those. The size of our firm and our model and our leadership team really show, like, there's a lot of transparency. You can't really hide. We all see everything. So it really does embeds that trust and accountability, I think, as well.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add to that too, Joe, is vulnerability. Is that permission's putting it too highly? I think there's not even an acceptance. We expect people in our leadership team to be vulnerable and to share that vulnerability with us as a leadership team as well, so that we can help. I think sometimes, especially in the legal ecosystem, as I like to call it, there is almost a deterrent to actually show weakness or vulnerability at a leadership level, because you should have that mask of I'm totally in control and I know what's happening. Whereas I think as a team, we embrace it and support each other through those times as well.
Yeah. And what I find is often tenure and time helps to build trust and that psychological safety so you can be vulnerable with each other. And then I think there's also a flip side of some teams that do have high tenure sometimes can know each other a bit too well, which can get in the way of us having difficult conversations because we might be like, oh, they've always been that way, or maybe step over issues. How have you navigated that to ensure that you stay relevant and fresh and that you're actually facing into some of those tough discussions?
I think there's a definite risk. And it's actually, I think, gone the other way for us, that I think when, say, a new leader comes into the group, we might be a bit more gentle and not push too much. But then I think really, because we are so focused on the purpose and we're here for the long term, that like any relationship, marriage, otherwise, that it can be awkward. But if you don't lean into it, like, people will just leave, and that's not what we want. Don't want a high turnover, and I think our experience shows that. It often helps, I think, to get fresh insight as well. So we have different consultants come in, do 360 feedback we do on each other and for our teams, and in different strategy days in that kind of way too. So always kind of getting fresh insight as well helps.
I think those feedback loops, because teams learn just like individuals learn, and I think it's really important to create those feedback loops.
I think one other thing that's relevant is that we've recently, as well as our purpose refresh and vision refresh, we've also focused again on our values as well. And we have done that on the journey, but really being purposeful in looking at the values and what they mean and how they translate from into behaviours has been a really good exercise for us recently. I think both as a leadership team and throughout the firm as well. But it's interesting, Claire, that you mentioned that having the hard conversations and that type of thing. So just in fact this week we deep dived a bit more into what one of our values is character and what that actually means. And it was really interesting from the team's perspective that people sort of talked about having the hard conversations, what happens when you make mistakes, owning up to those mistakes, those types of things too. I think some organisations, not all, will have their purpose and their vision and their values, but they sit on paper. And I think it's probably even harder when you're a larger organisation. But it's so important to be able to bring those things to life, to constantly refer back to them so that people do have that common motivation, I suppose, around what they're doing, how they're working to contribute to the firm.
Yeah. And so how have you brought Hive's purpose to life for your people?
So recently, I mentioned before, initially the purpose was around improving the experience for our team and our clients. We recently revisited that as a leadership group as well. And I think that was an interesting journey for us too, because we hadn't revisited the purpose for around 10 years, I think. And so when you step back, it can be a bit confronting sometimes, I think, to when you start to think, what is our purpose and where do we want the firm to go? And so it did take us a while to work through those things and to come up with something that we all felt aligned on. And so the purpose now is to create, enable, and inspire positive impacts through high quality and progressive services. So it's sort of brought into that. It's a bit more, I find it, a bit more positive in terms of the broader impact that we can have now that we're a more established firm and for people to get behind. And that purpose really can help us with our team and our clients and our community as well. But in terms of how we are working with our team around that. Obviously, we presented it and we really asked for a lot of feedback from the team around it as well. So for us, it's not about the leadership team just saying this is what we're doing next. It's always been about getting that feedback and input from our team as well. So when we have strategy days, our entire firm is included in those strategy days. So getting that as well. And I think the thing about actually getting buy-in and seeing those things come alive is just making it part of our day-to-day language in the way that we talk. So, for example, we have all the staff meeting every week, so we refer to our purpose, our values. We celebrate Hive things, as we call them, and we want that reference back to those values and behaviours and purpose that we have. Jo, I know your specific team does some other things to help with that as well, if you wanted to maybe talk about some of those.
Yeah, like we really wanted to, some people really appreciate kind of being some loud appreciation and in front of others as opposed to just quiet thank yous and everyone just knowing they've done a good job. So it's evolved through, we have hive lights, we have lots of puns, but even just we have wins and challenges in our team meetings but celebrations at the end about demonstration of values and link it back to what have we seen that's good and hivesterish that week. And it sounds a bit cultish, but it is great to actually remember and often align with our values of what we do see and value when things go well with each other, whether it's collaboration, courage or character. And we see it every week. There's always something to celebrate. So it's great.
It's making it real for people. It's calling it out in terms of, and sometimes people don't necessarily realise that they're displaying those values or that behaviour as well. So that calling it out, I think, really helps, and with practical examples of it.
Yeah. I think reward recognition is a great way to bring your values to life. And you mentioned before the Thrive at Hive. I love all the little play on words. And obviously, I like the word thriving because it's in my business name and my book names. But you said that Thrive at Hive was linked to performance reviews and also to career development.
Yeah.
How do you link the values into Thrive at Hive?
Yeah, well, actually, we've recently refreshed that. So, what we've done is we've created a values bullseye, a Hive bullseye. And basically, what we've asked people to do is, with all of our values, ask them to self reflect in terms of where they think they sit in that bullseye in relation to those values as well. It's a really good way. So, if people feel like they're out on the outer circle in terms of what they might be doing creatively and they do want to be doing more of those sorts of things, what can they do to actually move themselves further into the center of the bullseye? It's literally a visual. And so I think doing things like that where people can have it on their desk, beside their desk or whatever, and actually visualize it and be thinking about what they want to do to move themselves more to the center of that bullseye can help as well. And also making it part of our Thrive at Hive meetings. So with the Thrive at Hive program, which was basically designed by the entire team. It wasn't just us doing it, it was the entire team saying, these are the types of things that we want. Part of it is actually having Thrive at Hive meetings. There are some structured meetings, but we say to the entire team, you can have a Thrive at Hive meeting whenever you want to have it. You don't have to wait until it's like a normal performance review once a year type thing. You can have those meetings whenever you want. And I know that many of the team too have one-on-ones. Jo, would you like to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. I think, so Thrive at Hive really is in response to people saying that's traditionally a very awful process for employees to go through, and that all the bad feedback kind of waits until just before salary time and then people get told it. And so we redesigned the program. So at the start of the year, we set a goals session, and we've got expectations and all sorts of technical skills and other skills that we want to see for the business. And that's in guides of where people should be at and how they might get there. So we set some goals from the year. We do a transparent salary review and provide industry ranges towards middle of the year, invite people if they want to have a discussion about where we see them being at. They're welcome to do that. Then towards the end of the year, we have reflections of how the goals have gone and where to next. But yeah, so each month at least we also have one-on-ones with a principal or senior supervisor then, and a buddy system typically as well, and the mentor system and the Be There program as well. We've got lots of other kind of wraparound supports to ensure thriving, which we're very proud of.
We are. And I think the other thing too with that, and it comes back to what we were talking about before around playing to people's strengths as well, is more traditional, I suppose, firm. It's very much to succeed in your career. It's a very linear career. You need to do these certain sorts of things and be good at the legal skills or whatever to progress through. So when we thought about what Hive stands for in terms of playing to people's strengths and also wanting to build people's skills from the business perspective as well, innovation perspective, human skills as well, we really thought about how people can work out where their strengths are. So we've come up with different quadrants of the types of attributes that we value at Hive and let people really, I suppose, help them direct their own careers about playing to their strengths as well. They're quite transparent around that.
I love taking a strengths-based approach because I think people can be at their best. So I'm very keen to drill into the leadership team to find out a little bit more. So you mentioned before that there's no managing partner. I'm just curious, like, how does the team stay aligned if there is no hierarchy, and whether that's to do with decision making or just alignment as a team?
Sure, I can start with that. From a technical legal perspective, there's a shareholders agreement about how you might make some formal decisions, and we can delegate authority around that. But really, we do take a very collaborative approach. So we have principals meetings each week. We have official board meetings as well as we're directors. But we also then have sub-team meetings throughout that, and a very open kind of relationship and very close relationship between all the different principals. And there really is, and we are at risk and have been trying to focus more on not trying to make all decisions collaboratively and empowering individuals to go off and make decisions and just support them. But I think we're just in our human nature that our type of personalities are we are all very interested in what each other are doing. We do like to socialise and talk about all various decisions that might impact the firm, because we really care about the firm. We care about our teams and the people in it, and we all have personal and vested interests in the business. So issues might come up, we talk about them openly. I find if there's something contentious, about it, or if it's feeling like that there isn't alignment and there needs to be further discussions, often just taking a step back and allowing it to aerate. I think over time, emotions can come and go, and it depends on what people are at individually or personally in those circumstances. But if you allow enough time for people to reflect and go and ensure that everyone's got the different information and being communicated with in the way that they prefer, and you meet in the middle, that we've always been able to work through making any sort of key decisions. There's really not been anything that has tipped us all over the edge or that has really been a blocker. We've all kind of moved forward in the same way you would in a mature kind of relationship of otherwise, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, John. I think the other thing that helped us as a leadership group a few years ago was to do the DISC framework around appreciating how we all communicated, where our strengths were as a leadership team as well. Because in the type of leadership model that we have, or management model that we have, is so important. And understanding how different people communicate. I mean, I'm a talker. I like to hear things. I like to talk things through. Other people like to read things and have that time to consider and make the decisions around that type of thing. I think that the fact that we had that self-reflection, we shared it around the leadership team, we talked about it very openly, gave us a new respect and appreciation for how we work together as a leadership team.
Yeah, I think it's so important to understand each other's styles and how people do like to communicate and make decisions, because you can be so much more effective as a team too. So, Jo, you said earlier that you divvied up the responsibilities of a managing partner in terms of roles and responsibilities. How did you go about doing that, and how do you maintain the clarity of who's accountable for what at the principal level?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And we've got a brand new principal, and we've just retired a principal. So we've just reflected and refreshed all of that as well, and where the business is at. So yeah, it's a strength-based approach. Actually, it was about 7 or so years ago, there weren't so many principals, and so it was quite concentrated when the managing principal had left. But as each kind of new principal comes on and takes on more of a role, it makes more sense. So naturally, we divide it between, so I'm technically responsible for finance, so I do the budget and manage the accounting and bookkeeping and tax requirements with our external provider. And similar with IT as well, and that we have an outsourced managed service provider as well, but I'm responsible for their performance and the hardware, software, like within the business, and how that works. And but Mel, with her natural strengths with human resources, I was going to say humans, the hivesters, the people. Mel's the glue that holds everything together, I think. So she has a real natural strength of looking after from paralegals to principal transition for role transition, whatever that is, that she really has her finger on the pulse of how everyone's feeling, and it's good for everyone else, I think, to not just have your own principal to talk to have someone independent to do that. And so other areas, include compliance, which covers insurance and risk as well, and principles that are really with that kind of frame of mind. It's a real natural fit for them to do that. We've got principals responsible for the social and the corporate side as well. What am I missing? Pricing and
Learning
productivity has got a new name that I won't call it the old name, which is very exciting. It does naturally fit to what the business needs and what the principals bring. What do I miss now?
And I think some of those areas have over the years as well. It's been interesting to see that too, because maybe some of those areas started off to be more traditional type areas that you find in a more traditional firm, but we've evolved them now to fit exactly Hive's needs as well, and where we see our focus and our strategic focus as well.
And there's been a risk, I think, for those of us that have been around since before time, we all inherently think we know what we're talking about, and that's been trickier for new principals to come in and go, hang on, what do you mean? How do you know what Joe does? Or why do you just trust Joe to go off and do that? And then they want to ask more questions. But yeah, even most recently, so we just sat down and we wrote down, what do we actually mean with these areas? Like, how do I know, okay, when the BAS are due, when the FBT declaration is due? Okay, so as a director of a business and as a curious principal, I know that's going to be undertaken, but we still have it on the board calendar. We still discuss it. We still circulate it and air it out as well. But yeah, I think writing everything down so it helps. Yeah.
And I like the recalibrating the evolution. Like it does sound like you're constantly evolving as an organization, even looking at your purpose and your values and roles and responsibilities as a new principal comes in. It's that constant evolution and the continuation of a team thriving, because teams aren't static. It's not just a tick and it's done, it's constant. And it's like, how do you continue to evolve?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing too, and we mentioned her at the start too, our operations manager and our ops team, I mean, just that to operate in the way that we operate, we need that underpinning of really good checklist processes, systems that we can use as well. And I think over the years we've got better at that too, which has helped us maintain the type of management structure or even leadership structure that we have too.
I'm very keen to ask the next question. Like, how do you manage the tension or conflict or healthy debate as a team when you don't have a traditional boss to make the final decision or call when people disagree? What does Hive leadership team do?
I think it's still a democracy. It's not a cheerocracy as such. It's still a democracy. So it's still majority kind of votes and rules. And I think, but it really does allow and encourage, and we need everyone to have all the information they need to make a decision, have the right to ask questions and have a discussion about it. I think we're really, I think, evolved now compared to, yeah, where we were even 3, 5 years ago about having difficult conversations and being able to communicate and not being emotionally triggered. And I could be talking about myself by it all. That really, one, looking after yourself individually and taking a lot of that ownership to do that. And allowing time and discussion and reflection in between. That they're really, I just can't think of, there's not been anything we haven't been able to resolve in that way, but there's definitely been differing approaches. But you do need to know when something is important enough for you to want to push on and ask more questions or get your views on. But really, if you've said that and everyone else disagrees, and that's fine. Decisions do need to be made and risks do need to be taken, but we really do trust each other a lot to have the best interests of the business going forward.
Mm. And I think what we find is now, because you sort of get in a flow, I think, of how you do things, you'll find that people understand or appreciate what level of detail might be needed or the thinking that goes behind the recommendations that are made to the leadership group. And you're right, Joe. I mean, people will ask more questions and they'll want to know more, which is fine. But when you've got that level of respect and understanding about how you work and what people will need to actually make decisions, it goes a lot better. Yeah.
Maybe it's the psychological safety element of it. We've worked together for a long time, or we do feel safe to say, I don't agree. Have we done this? Have we thought about that? Why are we doing it that way? That doesn't make sense. But we're also open enough to not be so fixed minded when we do come with a recommendation as well. It's like, no, that is a really good point. I'm going to take that away and I'm going to let me adapt or remove from that. So we see a lot of that, I think, really mature just engagement at the moment at the board table and the leadership group, which is great.
And I think we talked about secret sauce before, the other secret sauce is really that transparency part of it too. That, well, what is motivating the recommendation, or when people are feeling uncomfortable about something, actually being able to say it and articulate it and feel, as you say, Joe, safe to say it within the group. And I think we really do have that, which is good.
Mm. When we caught up before this podcast, Joe, you mentioned that in the past there was probably too much agreement as a leadership team and that you've had to shift that. Was there anything that you've done to build the healthy debate muscle or be more conscious of not just agreeing?
I think it was really coming out of that 360-degree review and the DISC profile. It really showed our challenge. I think that's what they call it when you see all the leadership strengths together, that our challenge was really low. So when your relationships are really high and you're really prioritizing all getting along, you're really strong in that relationships quarter. becomes a weakness and a risk area for you on the accountability side, on the challenge and on the disagreeing. So when we realize that, and it goes back to the purpose and the values, that actually, no, yes, we did all want to come to affirm that we all get along and that's great, but that wasn't enough. That's not what we're actually here for. That's not the only reason we're here for. We want to do excellent work. We want to be really challenged in the work that we're doing. We want to be really proud of the work that we're doing, and we want to be innovative. We really do want to be driving it forward and not just be where we were 10 years ago when we did disrupt the industry. We want to continue pushing because everyone's caught up now, and we want to keep pushing the envelope. So if we're all aligned on that purpose, yes, we've got the relationship and we trust in the relationship basis. We felt more empowered to move into the challenge of having the difficult conversations, saying we don't agree, and having that healthy kind of respectful debate. And we could really see from like our pulse check type surveys for employees in the period after that, we were being more directive, being more holding people to account more. And I think it improved the performance and balance for the whole business.
And before you mentioned that you have a democracy sort of vote and rules to make decisions, is there a model that you use or a particular way that you do that when you can't reach agreement just by consensus?
Not really, is it, Joe? I think it's just a lot of the time we talk it through and we get to the stage where we do. I think there've been a handful of times where we've said we'd take it to a vote, but it hasn't been often, has it, Joe?
Yeah, no, and some things we need to demonstrate. We have votes for new principles, for example, things in the shareholder agreement, but it is, there's no carrying vote, there's no chair vote, there is no different voting on tenure or lockstep or profit units or anything like that. It is very socialist, you might say. It's very all communist. We all agree. We all have equal votes. Yeah, it's not like that at all.
Yeah. So going back to purpose, you've designed a purpose-driven pay and performance model. How have you made that work and what does that look like?
I think a real benefit for us is the fact that we have the way we've taken away timesheets and the billable hour. So most traditional firms, there will always be, when you're looking at performance and reward, it will come back to how much people have brought in, how much work people have brought in, and it's really factored then on their individual budgets, what they've produced. And I think it's just a natural default for when you're assessing someone's performance to look at that. What are the dollar figures that they've brought in? One of the real strengths of our model, as we said before, is when you take those individual budgets away, it really does motivate people to work in a team and work for the firm as a whole, and it really does foster that collaboration side of it. But what it meant for us was we really did need to sit back then and think, so how are we recognising and rewarding what people are doing? And that was part of the Thrive at Hive program that we put together as well. So we really had to sit back and think, right, so if we can't go, this person has billed this much time or these many fees in this quarter or whatever, what are we actually looking at? So it did come back to their skills, their contribution to client outcomes, what they've contributed to the firm. Have they helped to build other people's skills? Are they mentoring others? Are they helping to manage others? Are they helping to profile the firm? Are they involved in innovation projects that are helping us as a team be more efficient? And are they helping with build the culture of the firm as well? So we really did have to look at all of that, and that's what the Thrive at Hive program has really pulled together a lot more. So it's moved away from that being measured by what the work the fees that you might bring in, to a much more holistic way of looking at recognition and reward. The other thing that I don't think we've mentioned too is that we do have an employee share scheme as well, which is quite unusual for a law firm to have. So our permanent employees do have shares in the firm, which we see incentivises them to be motivated to help the firm succeed as a business as well. Joe, is there anything else that you would add to that?
Yeah, like I think it's when you take away those individual KPIs and little targets, you want to reward something. And yeah, we're really trying to incentivize everyone working together. And so when the firm does well and the firm needs, we don't have, maybe it's reflective or obvious from the principal division or how we've described ops, we don't have a separate business development team or a HR team or a marketing team or a finance team or a tech team. We have a very slimlined model, because we really want to, going back to improve the experience, create the positive impacts for our team. Part of that was not having a lot of the extra things, of which, yes, it might make it nice to have everyone have an EA, for example, but in the end, you just got to work harder to cover that cost. And so we're really trying to, that work-life balance is trying to reduce what you don't necessarily need. So to step into that, to have everyone even know our name, for example, and or have a social media, have a social committee, all these things, it has to be done by the people within the firm. And we have 2 people effectively in our ops team for a firm of 40 people. So it really does rely on everyone jumping in, and we value and we make time for people to be able to do that. And so if one team, another example is if one team is very busy and one team is quiet, everyone should be able to support that team where the work is and where you need to go, and not be worried about, yes, whose team sheet that's going to be on. If the firm is doing well, the firm's doing well. And if the firm isn't, then we all just help in to pull up for each other.
And so across Hive, are there like shared team goals or kind of measures of success that you've put in place?
Not really specifically, no. Like, so we have team budgets and we have different strategy days for actual clients and the type of work and things that we want to be doing. The principles of the team obviously think about career progression and future leaders and progression in that way, but not specifically. But it's a good idea to reflect on a particular purpose for the individual teams and the leadership team, and for what success looks like when we don't have timesheets. It's not an easy one to solve, I think.
Mm.
I think it is actually one of the strengths of Hive that we've been able to keep our umbrella type purpose, if I can call it that, as an organisation as well, and that's relevant to the teams as well. So I think one of the things that we've found is, as we've grown, when Joe and I started with the firm, there were less than 10 people, I think, and we're now up to 40. But there is a challenge in people understanding and appreciating the purpose and what you're trying to work to as a firm, because I think there was a jump from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. It's almost like it's on the tens as you go, it gets a bit harder. But one of those things is have that overarching purpose as a firm, and then have people see, or the teams and individuals see how they fit into that purpose as well, and not make it so rigid or directive that people can't find what they're contributing in that purpose as well. What I love about the purpose is that it helps people to focus and to actually reflect on what the team's individual purpose might be within that overarching purpose.
Yeah, well, it's really important because I like to think about purpose on 4 levels. There's the organization's purpose, which you've obviously just re-articulated. Then the team has a purpose, like why the team exists, and there'll be multiple teams at Hive will have a team purpose. And then it's about meaningful work. How do you connect the work that you do every day to the individual, but to the organization's purpose? And then there's your own individual values. And that links to, one, the things that we value most, but also really links to strengths. And often I'll use the values in action tool, which is a strengths diagnostic by Martin Salomon, to help people really connect to those things too. So is there anything specifically you've done to connect people to the work that they do each day in terms of that meaningful work and seeing the why in the work that they do?
We allow a lot of flexibility, and particularly in our team, there's a lot of different type of work for different types of clients that you could choose to specialise in. And we have these discussions in the Thrive at Hive for pretty early on and frequently, of what type of work do you love to do? What gets you really excited and gets you out of bed in the morning to look forward to coming to work? And for some people, it's about the clients and not necessarily about the work. So some people are human focused as opposed to task focused. Some people it's the variety. Some people love this doing the same thing, but there's a real variety you can do even within our team. But particularly when you get to a time of settling into a team to focus on a particular area. Yeah, as Mel mentioned, I work in health and government, and I think really every day is an opportunity to work with our clients to actually deliver new programs to benefit patients, the consumers, the community more broadly, whether it's amending legislation or assisting regulator to enforce or require compliance with legislation. There really is a greater positive impact that we can work on. And so I very much see that every day, and we have frequent conversations with our team of, but what is it that drives you to feel like you're creating that positive impact. But yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can slice it, but we just have lots of discussions about it and encourage reflection, I think.
Yeah, I think another example I can give too is we've recently partnered with the Victorian Women's Legal Services in terms of a project to call out gendered violence within the legal profession or industry as well, and help them pilot some of the materials that they were developing, help them develop those materials as well. And it just shows, I suppose, that connection of back to our purpose, which is to create, enable and inspire those positive impacts. It doesn't necessarily just have to be about the work that we do as well. It's actually helping the profession, I suppose, to stamp out the gendered violence that occurs within it. So it's meaningful for us to do those sorts of things, and to be able to connect it back to our why, I think is really, really important. And the team that worked on those materials just really got a lot of satisfaction out of doing that as well.
Yeah. I love that you're having conversations individually around what motivates and drives people, because it'll be different for different people. And although it links to the same overarching purpose, people will come at it from different angles. So actually taking the time to understand the differences and similarities between people is really important. Yeah. Just a last question in regard to the team itself. So whether this is to do with the leadership team or the teams that you lead, but have you articulated a team purpose, or is that something that you haven't done?
I think maybe some of the teams have for not at the leadership level, which I definitely would invite. It'd be great. I think we should actually put that and take it forward. I think the individual broader teams that we have in the firm have. So our energy and climate change team have. Our CCR team a few years ago, we really took a long time to reflect about what was it that brought us together? Why do we exist? Why does it make sense for us to continue to be a team? I can't recall it off the top of my head, but I think it would probably be a good then moment to refresh on it, particularly and making sure that's really clear for everyone as well. But it's a really good idea and a really good point to be thinking that purpose is, we have our overarching purpose, but it's the distinction of why is this particular team, even if members can be part of lots of different teams, what is it that is particularly unique to bringing our team together and keeping it together? So I think it would really focus people on why we're here.
Awesome. And so my final question is, and I'll ask both of you it, but if you could leave our listeners with one message about what makes a thriving team, what would that be?
I think one of the things that I've reflected on is the fact that you do want to embrace that diversity within a team as well, and diversity, or a whole lot of diversity, I suppose. But when you do that, it means that you've got people who are a whole lot of different people. They're different, they're motivated in different ways, they bring different skills, contributions, approaches to the team that you have as well. And you need to find ways that are broad enough to continue for people to feel engaged and motivated and fulfilled in what they're doing. And so to do that, you really need to have those conversations, understand the breadth of those motivations and what people want to do and all of that type of thing. It's really important that you listen to people, I think, and to have that information available for you for then design the way that you're going to have your workplace work to take into account those differences. And I'm always of the view that if you lift things up high enough, you can get to that optimal idea of what's going to work for most people. And if it's not working for some people, then maybe they're not necessarily the right person for your organisation. Purpose is very essential to that.
Yeah, it all links through to purpose. Yeah. Thanks, Mel. Joe, how about for you? What one message you'd leave the listeners with?
I would say, because it's been a real focus on us for the last few years, is leaning into those difficult conversations. And when it does get hard, it is so very tempting to throw your hands up and want to try and go into something new and shiny and exciting. But I think there's real value in, if you've got a thriving team, to have these conversations in a safe way and a respectful way, because the feedback is so useful, and you often have no idea that someone's feeling a certain way or has experienced something in a certain way until people have shared that feedback. So the feedback is really valuable, and sometimes it's hard to hear, but would encourage people to get support to learn how to have those difficult conversations if it doesn't come naturally, and have a longer term focus for their career and the team.
Awesome. I love the link between kind of facing into the healthy debate that you need to have as a team, but also learning from it too, based on those feedback loops. Awesome. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks. What a powerful reminder that thriving teams are always evolving. Hive Legal's story shows us what's possible when you redesign work around purpose, relationships and strengths, from their no hierarchy leadership model to their deeply intentional culture. Mel and Joe offered a masterclass in building something truly progressive. What really stood out to me was the way Hive connects meaning to every layer of their work, from individual purpose and values to the meaningful work they do every day, and connecting that to the organisation's purpose. This is their secret sauce. It's not just flexibility for flexibility's sake, it's the freedom to choose, to play to your strengths and to work in a way that aligns with your values. Their teams, both client-facing and internal, feel valued, trusted and empowered. And that kind of alignment doesn't just happen. It's cultivated with feedback, transparency and lots of real conversations. So I'd love to hear what you've taken from this episode. Thanks for joining the Thriving Leaders podcast. Keep on thriving. Thanks for joining us at the Thriving Leaders podcast. If you'd like to find out more about our leadership programs, including our Thriving Leaders program, Thriving Women in Leadership and Thriving Teams, as well as executive and team coaching, keynote speaking or facilitation, head to our website, www.thrivingculture.com.au. This is also where you can sign up for our newsletter, where I share useful leadership and team development insights and tools, as well as our podcast. You can also grab your copy of my book, Thriving Leaders, Learn the Skills to Lead Confidently. It's also available at all good online retailers, on Audible, Spotify and Kindle. If you liked this episode, I'd be so grateful if you left a 5-star review, as it helps us reach more people and therefore helps more leaders thrive.